TV. All right, we're live.
All right, Klim, you ready?
I'm ready.
How you doing, everybody, and welcome to the Moffett on the Mic show. We are live, as always, courtesy of the A1 Sports Network for our very first show of 2023. I am Craig Moffett, and of course, this show would not be complete without the production stylings of the one and only Chris Klim.
What's going on, Craig?
Klim, Happy New Year. It's been a few weeks since we last did a show, since we last spoke, but I hope you had a fun New Year's, doing whatever it was you were doing. And so that's cool. But we are really thrilled. Klim pulled a rabbit out of his hat at the last minute after we were talking last night, and we have our first guest coming on in about 9 minutes or so. He is the digital reporter for Heavy on Jets at heavy.com. He is Boy Green. Paul Andrew Esden Jr. is going to be joining us. And Klim, I don't know if you really know about him too much, but I've been following his stuff. He posts a lot of stuff about the Jets and everything. And I've always responded to his comments. He's always been really cool to respond to me. So I've always had a pretty decent back and forth. But I came across him on an episode of the Can't Wait podcast, where they do picks for the week for the NFL games, and he was a special guest, and he just killed it. He was absolutely hilarious. And I was really hoping to get him on, and I'm really glad you're able to pull it through. So Boy Green's going to join us in about 9 minutes. We are going to eulogize what was a disappointing Jets season after they lost yesterday, 11-6 to the Miami. Was it 11-6 or 9-6?
Technically, it was 11-6.
Okay, because I was listening to the Badlands podcast and they said 9-6, so I didn't know if it was.
No, it was 2-6 because I was looking at I saw something online. It was like the cover for the Jets were supposed to cover by 3.5.
Yeah,
and then that safety fucked everything up.
Yeah, so the Jets fall. They lose 6 in a row to end the season after a 7-4 start. They finished season 7-10. So we are going to eulogize this season with Boy Green, as he had a lot to write about today on the Heavy on Jets Facebook page. So definitely, if you have questions for Boy Green, you want to just comment on our feed below. Klim will put them on as we get them. And look, before he comes on, as we have about like 7 minutes to go, I'm a little surprised. So I'm going to assume today that Mike LaFleur is safe, because I feel like they would have probably gotten rid of him by now. Now, anything is possible. I think that, Sal is going to go to bat for LaFleur all the way. There were good things about this season, but ultimately this season is going to leave a bad taste in your mouth because of the fact that they lost 6 in a row. They haven't scored a touchdown in 3 games, and the offense has just been a complete and utter disaster. And while not many people are going to give the defense crap, I am. Because this is supposed to be, I guess, an elite unit the way everybody described it. But man, Klim, I'm sorry, but this defense sometimes just seems a bit overrated.
I think you're perfectly on point with saying that, because everyone said how elite, I'll say this, elite the defense was this year. And there were times, yes, they did look elite, but there were some games in the past 6 weeks where they just looked average. This is not an elite defense by any means necessary. This is an above average to very good defense. This is, top 15.
Defense.
Yeah, sure.
They're a very good defense. I'm not saying they're not. But everybody was putting them on this really major pedestal. And then what they were trying to do was deflect the problems on the defense with the offense being the issue. Well, because the offense didn't score a lot of points, so the defense is getting killed out there. And I get that part. But, when the Jets lost to the Lions a few weeks ago, everybody was trying to blame Zach Wilson because Zach Wilson didn't score enough points or left throws out there through a horrible interception. And yeah, he did not play his best game. However, Zach Wilson was also not playing linebacker when there was a complete breakdown in communication, which left a backup tight end wide open for a 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah. Elite defenses don't let that happen.
Exactly. Too many times this season, there has been communication breakdowns everywhere. It's happened. You heard it earlier in the season when DJ Reed was commenting on it. It got better as the season went on. And then these last 6 games, Klim, you want to talk about a Jets team that was basically controlling their playoff destiny. And this team was not up to play big games.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter who the coach is, man. It wasn't like that. Well, Gase, they didn't even have a chance at the playoffs. But Todd Bowles never got up to play for big games. The last 2 years of Rex Ryan never got up to play big games. And now you're seeing it again with Robert Saleh. They played 2 tough games on the road back-to-back against the Vikings and the Buffalo Bills. And you know what? Maybe if Mike White doesn't get hurt in the Buffalo Bills game, maybe the Jets are a playoff team right now.
Right.
It's possible. I'm not saying definite. I'm saying it's possible. But after that game where Mike White got hurt and couldn't play, listen, was Zach great in the Lions game? No, not really. Threw a brutal interception, still had a hard time connecting with receivers. But when they needed a touchdown late in the game, he gave it to you. And the thing with me is that the defense should be able to shut that down knowing you have the lead. And they didn't do it, man. They didn't do it. Fast forward to the Jacksonville game, which was a complete no-show by everybody. But again, they just don't get up for these games, man. And these are easy opponents. I don't want to say easy opponents. Let me rephrase. They're on the same level as the Jets. The Jets can beat the Lions. The Jets can beat the Jaguars. the Jets can beat the Seahawks. So after the Jets lose to the Jaguars, the Jets get a gift. And now it comes down to the Seahawks game. And Mike White gets cleared. So everybody's like, all right, let's go. Mike White's back and everything. And again, Klim, not up to play a big game. Why does this team look woefully unprepared in big spots? Where is the passion and motivation that was Salah's calling card in San Francisco? I don't see it, Klim.
It's
like, look at a team like the Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell, right? Dan Campbell gets the most out of those guys. Those guys play hard. He's fired up on the sideline. That's what I thought we were getting with Salah. I don't see it. I don't see it, at least not enough.
I was gonna say, you've seen it very minimal times this year. And I'm agreeing with you on that. Like, you've seen that, like, when, Salah's hyped up on the sidelines and all that stuff, but that's, when the Jets are winning. When the Jets are losing, he's, hands in pockets, he's Todd Bowles, like what we saw to Todd Bowles, just like minimal emotion on the sideline. Granted, yeah, there are times where Robert Saleh, it looks like he's ready to run through a brick wall for these guys. But on the other end, it's just like he just, no enthusiasm really.
It's just so odd, you know what I mean? And the thing is, like, I need to see that passion in year 3 for Saleh, because this is a do or die season. 2023 is a playoff season, or you're getting fired.
Right.
2023 is the season where you have him and Douglas have to they got to win these games. And, I wanted to see the Jets go out with a victory. I didn't really give a crap about where we picked in the draft, to be really honest. I just wanted to see them go out with a win. At least if they beat Miami, knock Miami out of the playoffs, end the 5-game losing streak, I'm happy. I'm happy that the season ended on a high note, even if it means knocking us down a few picks.
Right.
And again, Klim, it was a no-show. Now, look, I get it. George Fant didn't play. Dwayne Brown didn't play. A lot of starters didn't play. I know they kept, the offensive line was completely rebuilt around Connor McGovern, basically, and Laken Tomlinson. But it was just so, like, nothing. Like, literally nothing. And Mike LaFleur's play calling, again, was crap.
It's crazy to see. And we've seen all 3 quarterbacks play this year, between Flacco, White, and Wilson. All 3 quarterbacks looks like it looks like they have 3 different playbooks, which is absolutely insane to think of, because your quarterback should know every single fucking play in the playbook. And he's here.
All right, put him through. All right, without further ado, we are talking to the one and only Boy Green, digital writer for Heavy.com for Heavy on Jets. Hey, man, listen, thank you for coming on such short notice. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I mean, I just feel terrible that we got Craig and Chris, and then I'm ruining the whole party with a P first letter name. So wish I would have known. I would have told my parents 30 years ago, perhaps, to fix that issue. So I apologize.
No, it's all good. Well, listen, man, I just want to say, like, I'm a big fan of your stuff. I read your stuff all the time on Facebook. I respond to a lot of your stuff. You and I have kind of talked about, like, stuff with the Jets, and just keep it coming, man, because you really do an awesome job. And I told you in one of my comments that I saw your spot on the Can't Wait podcast, and I just thought that was like podcast gold. So,
that was awesome. It was, again, when Zach reached out to me. I've been good friends with Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic. Shout out to them, and Connor Hughes for a little bit now. So as soon as I got the text when I was driving back, because I do Taekwondo, so I got the text, went, man, I'm about to go into some training, but I'm like, hey, man, if this is later, I'm in. And you went, all right, let's do it. 7:30, whatever it was. And before you knew it, we were doing it. So it's an honor. Thank you guys so much for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
So how did you do that week with the picks, by the way? Did you beat Marissa, Connor, Zach, and Tim? I'm sorry, Tim McMaster.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah. By the way, and a great source of pride, I would have put that on my mama's refrigerator. And I did a whole bit because I think the week before me was Connor Hughes, and he had done horrible.
Oh, yeah.
He was 0-3. And then they brought me on, and I said, hey, guys, okay, I don't give predictions. I give spoiler alerts. So let me help the fans who I was representing, and let's get to business. So, of course, I went 3-0. And then in the middle of my bit, I was calling out their picks. Oh, that's trash. That's terrible. And we had a good time. So, yeah, 3-0. And I'm very proud. I don't know where they ended up because I had to drop out a few times to do my own show. So I haven't paid attention to some of the latter weeks of how the fans did, but I know we were on a great steam run for a while there on the Can't Wait pod. So hopefully they finish the job.
Yeah, you started it, man. You started the 3-0, and the fans just started winning every week. So
I take full credit for that. Absolutely. Absolutely full credit.
All right, so obviously another disappointing season in the books for the Jets. Are you surprised that Mike LaFleur is still around as of today?
I am not, now that we've heard. So for people who don't know, Monday, January 9th, as we're having this, the Jets players are doing all their exit interviews, both with general manager Joe Douglas and the coaching staff and with the media, as they're cleaning out their lockers and literally, exiting out of the building. And with that being said, Robert Saleh spoke earlier today, and he said that their coaches evaluation, the equivalent essentially of the player exit out, is the coaches exiting out, although they have their own work to do. He said that's going to happen later this week. So initially I thought, again, all my gut says, especially after the Robert Saleh comments immediately after the game and comparing that to earlier in the week, it sounded like there was a much different tune from Saleh. It sounded like to me that they're going to move on from Mike LaFleur. That was my gut. Hearing today, it sounds like he's going to take the next couple of days to make that decision. He didn't put a timetable, like said, see you guys on Friday, and one way or the other, the decision, fired or not fired, tune in, 11 o'clock on Friday. Like, he didn't give a date or a time on when that's going to happen, but he did say he's going to take the next couple of days to do that. It seems like they've, sneakily laid the groundwork. Joe Douglas today at his press conference, speaking with the media, said this decision is solely in Robert Saleh's hands, and quote unquote, we trust him with whatever decision he makes. He said, Joe Douglas said that Woody Johnson has given full support of whatever they end up deciding to do. I know there's been some reports that Woody could force his arm and tell him what to do. It does not look like any of that's going to happen. This will be on Saleh's plate. The one thing I will add, though, that is good either way, whether Mike LaFleur is fired or he's brought back, is Saleh confirmed that they will be bringing in a veteran offensive influence, presence, coach of some kind to the coaching staff. Remember, and God rest his soul, Greg Knapp, a.k.a. Napper, was supposed to be there the first year with everybody. He was supposed to be really the glue for this unit. Rob Calabrese, totally unproven. Mike LaFleur never called plays before. And Greg Knapp, who's been around some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, was supposed to, again, be that glue for the room. He tragically dies in that cycling accident, and thus the Jets randomly go with Kavanaugh after a period of time to try to fill that gap. And then this year, Saleh said it was a mistake that I did not refill that role last season. He said I wanted less voices in the room. They will be filling that void. Now, who that guy is it Gary Kubiak, Frank Reich, some Jet fan saying Cliff Kingsbury? I don't know. I will just tell you that there will be a name. Saleh confirmed 100%. They'll be filling that role. We will see at least that at a minimum in the offensive room in 2023.
Speaking of Mike LaFleur, what are your thoughts on him coming out and basically admitting that, we should have sat Zach Wilson his first year in the NFL? Like, what does that mean as, the coaching staff / what does that mean for Joe Douglas when you draft a guy second overall? You expect him to start. So what are your opinions on that?
Weird. I mean, where was that commentary? I don't know, 2 years ago, pal. So, it's kind of like, at a certain point, it's in a similar sense. I respect Tyler Conklin. Like, Tyler Conklin has come out after both the Seattle game and this game, and he's just been super blunt about his comments. Like, some players, play this cat and mouse game of like, we all tried our best. We all went out there. Like, Tyler Conklin just laid it on the line and said, man, how the hell did we not score? How the hell did we blow this season? And I was just like, man, it was just rare transparency from a player. So LaFleur, it's almost like, he got released from, being kidnapped for the last 2 years and finally just admits it. Okay. We should have, benched him right from the get-go and let him learn from a veteran. And then I think, again, a lot of our responses were, okay, well, why didn't you then? You were in the room, man. You were there. You were the offensive coordinator. Rob Calabrese was the quarterback coach. Like, you all were part of that decision, and the decision in terms of not bringing in another guy, because Saleh defended that by saying he said the media got Mike LaFleur with that hypothetical, like you trapped him and he said something maybe that he wasn't going to normally say, but you guys got him. But he said, and the way he defended the Zach Wilson decision, well, he was the best quarterback in camp. Well, yeah, because everyone else sucked. You had like James Morgan and all these other randos. Like, the real thing is you should have let him compete. People compared it to the Mark Sanchez, Mark Brunell thing, where it's a grandpa in the room. He clearly isn't going to beat you, but he's just there. And the Jets went with another token competition from that standpoint. So if we want to debate anything, it's about not actually bringing someone in. I'm not saying it has to be, Tom Brady, but someone that's Jacoby Brissett, a version of Jacoby Brissett, that legitimate, a guy who's just a professional quarterback. He's in the room, and if you're not on your P's and Q's, he can beat you. So I thought it was just weird. Again, I think a lot of us are like, where the hell was that 2 years ago? But I think there is a sense where it's not natural for a quarterback to start the way that Zach Wilson has for the first year and a half. Then all of a sudden, well, you know what? Maybe we should bench him. And he's just going to kind of learn behind the scenes. You bring in a real veteran quarterback this offseason, and then he gets another whack down the line. Like, that's very unusual, but it seems like that's the path that's going to happen here for the Jets. We'll see if it works, but it seems like that's where they're going to ultimately lean in 2023.
You had a tweet earlier today during the whole media scrum with all the players, like Elijah Vera Tucker, Breece Hall, were all interviewed today, and Zach Wilson was interviewed, and they asked him point blank about how he would feel about a veteran coming into the quarterback room in 2023. And he said, quote, "I'm going to make that dude's life hell in practice every day. I'm going to go out there and do my best to just show the coaches that I deserve to be there." With everything going on with Zach Wilson, a lot of people think he's not going to be back next year. Then there are other people, there's kind of some reports saying that the Jets are probably not going to trade him at all in 23 in the offseason. When Zach Wilson makes a comment like that, does it make you lean more towards the possibility that he will be back in 23 and he will be competing for the starting job against a veteran?
By the way, that revved my engine, man, because it was awesome to hear Zach Wilson, because the juxtaposition of that, right? And again, you guys got to really listen to the comment. I feel like it will do you a good service. Again, I tweeted out the link. It's also on SY Jets, wherever you guys want to find it, or just the Jets YouTube channel, find their full presser. But, to hear hear the question and how he responded to it, I thought was just hilarious in a great way. Like, man, that's the kind of attitude you're supposed to have, right? It would have been very easy for him to go like, whatever. I don't know why they do that. I'm the number 2 pick. Why the hell would you be going to get another veteran quarterback? It would have been very easy for him to whiplash back at the media, but he didn't. So I love that comment by him. That's awesome. And overall, again, if we were betting people, and whether or not we are, is we plead the fifth. But if we are betting people, the bettors would say that it's more likely than not that Zach Wilson will be on the roster. He's the only quarterback under contract right now. Well, actually, that's not true. Chris Strebler just signed a few hours ago. So shout out to all our Strebler fans out there. But he was part of that bombshell news breaking on the show that he was the only quarterback under contract. So, Mike White's a free agent. Joe Flacco's a free agent. Like, yeah, he's probably going to be back just based on contract. And secondly, based on the specific nature of that contract, it's more likely than not they'll bring him back, especially all the comments, too. Really just Joe Douglas, we're not the kind of organization that gives up on talent early, through hell or high water. I mean, we've heard every comment this week. It would be very bizarre 2 months from now, yeah, he's traded. What the hell? Like, it's okay to say, like, I don't know, we'll see what happens, as opposed to, hell no, he's our guy. Of course we're going to develop him. So for them to go that far out of their way, they're either very bold liars or they're just calling it how they see it, and that he will be this QB2, QB3 moving forward. So, yeah, I think it is very likely that, again, he will be, depending on who you end up bringing back. Is it, so Zach Wilson's already under contract. Do you bring back Mike White cheap because of how he ended the season? I thought he could get some real money, but the way he blew up at the end of the injuries, I don't think that's the case. So maybe he comes back for super dirt cheap, and then you go get your veteran. Who is that? Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers? God knows who. Then maybe that's your three-peat quarterback room, and they're all technically competing for the starting job. But no matter what, Zach Wilson is either QB2 or QB3. So there is some sense that it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. But we have to see who the QB1 guy they're going to bring in that's going to, quote-unquote, compete with everybody. But, yeah, I would lean towards he's back in some capacity competing against some level of a veteran quarterback.
Now, to even go off that, don't you think that, say the Jets do bring in a guy like Jimmy G, Derek Carr, Rodgers, or now the new update yesterday, Lamar Jackson, don't you think it would be counterproductive to have Zach Wilson, a 24-year-old kid, second overall pick, be the backup quarterback to one of these guys? Because in reality, yeah, the competition is going to be great for Zach Wilson. But I think in all reality, we all know that whatever veteran quarterback we bring in, they're going to start next year. So don't you think like having Zach Wilson as the backup is kind of counterproductive, and especially with how we've seen Joe Douglas basically just take advantage of all these GMs with trades, like.
That's true. And first off, I respect the hell out of the Elijah Vera Tucker jersey, not getting enough offensive line
That's
love.
my guy right there. That's my man. I love him.
Quick detour. I mean, how the hell do we not throw a little bit of love on that on the friggin' show, for Pete's sake? But AVT, please come back healthy next year, my main man. But no, to answer your question, I understand. And Connor Hughes basically asked exactly what you said to Joe Douglas. Like, man, he either asked it to Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh. Like, the optics look horrible. You just took this guy number 2 overall, and he didn't use this comparison, but I mean, we all can because we're outside the room. Like, the Jaguars are playing in playoff football this weekend with the guy who went 1 pick ahead of Zach Wilson, and he's the arrow's pointing up. The Jaguars are this young, fun team and all that, and he's clearly the starter. Like, obviously, there's no question about it. And Zach Wilson, like, maybe he's going to be on the roster, maybe he's going to compete. Yeah. So, obviously, the optics are horrible, and it looks bad. But I think it would look much worse to trade him for a bag of beans. Now, I will say this, and this is a great point of contention. When I mentioned that Zach Wilson could be moved, because that was the Jay Glazer report on Christmas, that there's a big chance he could get traded. And all these people came in my mentions and said, yeah, for a 7th round pick for this. If that is really the offers that are out there, and I have no idea. But if those are the offers, I'm going to pick up the phone and tell the people to kick rocks, and boop, I'm going to hang up the phone. Now, okay, and I would understand if people have concerns about Zach Wilson. How could you not, based on everything we've seen thus far? But the Jets would be much better served to say, okay, if that's what's out there, then let's just develop it. What do we have to lose? At a minimum, let's say they bring in Jimmy G. I was thinking about this earlier. You bring in Jimmy G next year, Zach Wilson's QB2. Let's just say, for argument's sake, Jimmy Garoppolo plays 10 games and gets hurt. Stop me if you've heard that before. And all of a sudden, Zach Wilson is thrown back into it, and maybe the 10 games away, the full offseason, everything, all of a sudden, he has just figured things out, and then he goes out there and he looks halfway decent. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes, but he looks halfway decent. They're like, wow, I'm sure glad we kept that guy. So again, I get the optics are very poor, but I would say the optics are even poorer if you just trade him for nothing. Now, I think Joe Douglas could get something for Zach Wilson. While so far, Zach Wilson has only been in the NFL for 2 years. Sam Darnold was in the NFL for 3 years before they traded him. So he had an extra year of production to show a team like, hey, you may want this. And they got a 2nd, 4th, and a 6th for that guy. To me, I think it's even more intriguing when you have 3 years of control in theory of Zach Wilson. It's technically 2 plus a 5th-year option, but the other team can figure that out. I think that's a lot more attractive for an acquiring team than the known of what ends up being Sam Darnold, who, by the way, looked god-awful after all that hype in the Week 18 game against the Saints. He had like 50 yards passing and 2 picks. Gross. So where are all those Darnold truthers we just saw earlier? That I don't know. So I actually think Zach Wilson could get a fair package. What does that look like? 2-3-4, 2-4-5, 3-4-5, whatever. If they wanted to hit the eject button, like let's say they get Lamar Jackson or some guy that's like Derek Carr or something, like where it's not just Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, then you could go to Zach. Like it's clear Derek Carr could play for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Who knows how long he could play? That's where it gets murky with Zach Wilson. You're like, well, clearly he has no clear path outside of injury to play. At that point, perhaps the Jets say, all right, we'll trade him. But outside of that situation, I just imagine he's going to be on the roster despite the bad optics.
Yeah, because even like me and Craig have said it time and time again on this show. Like, we'll watch Joe Douglas make some of these trades, Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams, Chris Herndon, for God's sakes. Got a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon. Like, the guy just, like, literally just takes advantage of all these GMs. And it's like, you know what? Like, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, it really depends on what offers I guess you might have to hear for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, you can't just say no. That's the point, right? Like, you can't just say, of course we're not going to trade him. Like, again, while the verbiage, I think it was from NFL Network who combated the Jay Glazer report a week later, they said the Jets don't plan on shopping Zach Wilson. Well, okay, I don't plan on shopping for insert, but if a call comes, I'm like, well, okay, let's make a deal. So I think sometimes the verbiage can kind of get a little lost. Oh, they're not shopping him. So like 100% they're not going to trade him. Well, that's not what he said. I mean, the verbiage said that, like, we're not going to go out of our way to say, hey, Zach Wilson, fire sale, come get it while it's hot. But I do think that the offers are going to be open, and I think there will be teams interested. I know Zach Wilson, in terms of the public perception, the trade value probably would not be very high to the public, but there's going to be an NFL team that says to themselves, they're going to look in the mirror and says, Well, Zach Wilson sucked on the Jets. They're the Jets. Of course he sucked. For us, he'd be fantastic. Like some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams are going to convince themselves of that. And if the Jets wanted to move him for that package, it would be interesting. And I think it is an option. It's on the table. It's not completely off. I don't think it's completely on, as is most things. I think somewhere in the middle.
Why do you think that everybody is so high on Derek Carr? Do you think it's more just based off of he's probably the biggest name on the market? Because I don't know if it's me, but I find Derek Carr to be very overrated. And this year especially, because I know Josh McDaniels was a coach there this year, but that was probably one of his best offensive teams with Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs. Even a guy like Hunter Renfrow was a pretty decent number 2. Yet Carr had 14 interceptions this year, and there was a lot of games where I just didn't think he played well. So why should I be convinced as a Jet fan that Derek Carr going from Vegas to New York is going to automatically scream playoffs?
I think I'm glad that you asked this question, because this is like one of the biggest debates in Jets social media land. And I'm glad, because I think we're going to find ourselves on opposite sides. For me, first off, and this is not really even like a weighing factor in bringing him in. It just feels like a drop the mic way to get this thing started. Like Derek Carr, I wrote an article about it. Like Derek Carr would be the most accomplished quarterback in Jets franchise history. Now, some people may say, before I even spit the numbers out, well, like, that's not saying much, pal. And that's probably true. However, it's still interesting to say that he would have 8,000 more passing yards than the top guy. He would have 41 more touchdowns, passing touchdowns, than the next guy. And his completion percentage from a career standpoint would be third best all time, only behind Brett Favre and Chad Pennington. Like, the fact of the matter is, what he brings to the resume as a former multi-time Pro Bowl quarterback, he's put up video game numbers. And the thing I would say is to combat a few of the points that are out there. So people say, well, he's not a good weather quarterback. To me, I think that's kind of, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this show, but, oh, great. That's a little bullshit. I mean, like, the guy played at Fresno State, California, played for Oakland, California, played for Vegas. Like, he didn't seem to have a lot of opportunities to play in cold weather games. So could he suck in cold weather games? Maybe. I don't know. He's played like, 5 games in the cold? How the hell would I know? I don't feel like that small of a sample size is able to judge one way or the other whether or not he struggles in cold weather games. Now, to your point, he led the league and he missed like the final 2 games. So maybe he didn't ultimately end up leading the league, but he was among the league leaders in interceptions. Yeah, not great. And the first year of Josh McDaniels, and again, Devontae Adams and all the fun pieces that are over there, maybe he just didn't gel with what Josh McDaniels was bringing to the table. Maybe that's on coaching, not on Derek Carr, of not trying to fit into his system and just say, hey, here's a Patriot system, figure it out. Oh, you can't? Oh, you suck. Well, okay, maybe that's on the coaching then, because I think there's enough of a track record of success with Derek Carr that makes me say, okay, we could do something with this. And plus, if you think about the Jets, of course, you have to figure out the offensive line. That's first and foremost. And we could talk about that. There's a lot of questions with that. But a quarterback, a good quarterback, I know Jet fans don't know this because we haven't had a lot of these, but a good quarterback can mask deficiencies. They can mask issues on the offense. So when people say, we got to fix the offensive line, the safety, the linebacker, they're not a quarterback away. They're a quarterback away from being taken seriously. When you have a good quarterback, he can make a lot of your really bad areas go, well, I guess that's not so bad. And that's the key. Jet fans haven't had that often enough. So for me personally, Derek Carr would be in my top 3. I've got a top 3 in my head of quarterbacks I would love to see on the Jets in 2023, and Derek Carr is in my top 3. Now, whether he is traded with the 3-day Super Bowl thing or he's cut, he has a full no-trade clause, regardless of the circumstance. If he's traded, I don't think it's going to be massive. I don't think you're going to have to give up a first-round pick. I think the draft compensation will be low because he has a full no-trade clause. He could tell the Raiders to go blow me. He could say, like, and he can drag. And by the way, maybe he will, based on how the ending went. So he could drag his feet and force them to cut him, and then all you're giving up is financial compensation. So to the people that say he's overrated, I don't know. To me, and my day job is as a sports talk radio host, I feel like he's just rated. I don't know if it's over or under. I don't hear enough to say. I don't think enough people are telling me like, wow, Derek Carr is one of the best quarterbacks in football. I don't think anyone's saying that to me. And I feel like, if anything, maybe underrated because everyone says he sucks. And then I look at the numbers and I see some of the games that we've seen in primetime because it's a West Coast team and we're on the East Coast. But, for me, I don't know. I feel like some of that talk is kind of overblown. He would be in my top 3 quarterbacks, to reiterate, of guys I would want on my wish list heading into 2023 for sure.
All right, now this is my personal last question.
Sure,
going into the season, we thought we had a good running back room, and prior to the injury, Breece Hall looked like he was going to be the number 1 guy, that he was going to be taking all the snaps. But, he got injured. And I feel like most Jet fans, myself included, were like, you know what? It's not that huge of a loss because, we have Michael Carter, who showed out very good for us the year before. But the fact that from, I think it was October 23rd is when Breece Hall went down and he finished the season as the team's leading rusher. What does that have to say about, 1, the talent of Michael Carter, 2, the fact that Zonovan Knight took over the starting role after being on the practice squad, and 3, what does that mean to, Mike LaFleur / whoever the running backs coach is?
Yeah. I would say on a couple of things. First off, I think there was a lot of Jet fans who were misguided. I said this at the time, and because, I never say anything wrong and I'm always right. Of course I did. And more people should have been on it, of course. But I said at the time when Breece Hall went down, I immediately said, okay, let's start looking for options. And people went, Michael Carter. I'm like, Michael Carter? Did you see him in his rookie year? He couldn't stay healthy through that season because he is a guy that is best suited in a complementary role. He could be the pepper to someone's salt, the mac to someone's cheese, the yin to someone's yang. But as a solo guy, I said no freaking chance. But all these fans are like, oh man, Michael Carter, dude, for sure. And I'm like, all right, well, I know the Jets are going to go get somebody. So speaks to all the people that said, let's ride the Michael Carter train. So size, and really in college, Javonte Williams, he was always a compliment to another piece. He was never a bell cow, and his size and everything else told me he would never be a bell cow. And by the way, that's perfectly fine. You took him in the 4th round. He doesn't have to be Adrian Peterson. So to me, that didn't surprise me when he got real opportunities this year, and he struggled from that capacity, especially in the post-Breece Hall world from that standpoint. So they wanted to go get somebody. Now, we can make fun of, criticize, whatever, the Jets' decision. Joe Douglas called every team in the NFL with all the running backs who were available, and he made a top 3 list. And the top 3 guys on his list were James Robinson, who they ended up trading for, Kareem Hunt, and Jeff Wilson with the San Francisco 49ers. Those are the 3 running backs who are on his hit list for trades to figure out which one. Kareem Hunt would have cost a 4th round pick. Joe Douglas didn't want to give that up. And also Kareem Hunt obviously has a checkered history off the field that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And thus all of that wasn't worth it for the Jets in their mind. So they took Kareem Hunt off the board. So then you had James Robinson or Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson straight up went for a 5th round pick. James Robinson was a conditional 6 that could become a 5th. And Joe Douglas said, you know what? We'll go with James Robinson, a little bit of lesser draft value, but we still think he's a good player. And again, for all intents and purposes, and everyone can be wrong eventually, I suppose. I was all for the James Robinson trade at the time.
So was I,
Young guy, former 1,000-yard rusher. I'm like, okay, I preferred Kareem Hunt as my number 1 option, but I understood the James Robinson with lesser draft value and everything else. I said, that's going to be a home run hit for what it is. It's going to be great. And obviously it didn't work out. We got the Buffalo win, so maybe the draft trade was worth it in that sense. He's the one who scored the touchdown on that Zach Wilson screen pass. So maybe if you just get the win against Buffalo, which was the best win of the year, and all you had to give up was a 6th-round pick, if I could switch late draft picks for wins against Super Bowl favorite teams, sign me up, baby, for the future. But to me, the thing that really frustrates me, Chris, to your point, is that Robert Saleh, when asked, wow, so Michael Carter kind of sucked this year, thoughts? I'm obviously paraphrasing what the reporter said. And Robert Saleh goes, that 2nd-year wall. What does that even mean? What is this ominous made-up 2nd year? Like, what do people just? Is there a 2nd-year van traveling around just kidnapping people? And all of a sudden, sorry, your Space Jam powers were taken away. What does that even mean? He just kind of said that and offered no other explanation. Like, that 2nd-year wall. Next question. What second year wall? What does that even mean? So he didn't really provide enough of an explanation. And what does that mean? Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are just going to suck next year because second year? Like, no, all kinds of players have.
There it is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, guys. Like you can't figure that out as a coach. So that to me was a little annoying and kind of a lazy answer. Or he didn't have one, and that's just what he decided to roll with. I don't know. To me, that's kind of a crappy excuse as a coach, just saying this mythical thing that exists in the NFL. Sometimes it kidnaps people, and then they just aren't good. But he really needs to clean up his stuff. Michael Carter is a talented player, and the Jets got their quote-unquote bang for their buck. A fourth-round pick to have this kind of pop is really good. But obviously this year, I mean, he was abysmal at points almost unplayable at certain points where he just couldn't go north and south, which I don't know if it was a mental thing or what it was for him. Apparently we do know is this magical second year wall thing. So no, I think it just highlights a big issue here. The other thing on Zonovan, real quick, random detour back to that. I thought he should have been drafted. So when he was undrafted and the Jets brought him in, I'm like, oh, wow, unbelievable. And then they cut him at final roster cuts. Well, he initially made the 53, and then he was cut like a week later because of all this movement. And I'm like, he's getting claimed. And no one claimed him all year. And I'm like, wow, that's really weird. I think he'd be great in this scheme. Very odd. And all of a sudden he comes in and immediately pops against the Bears. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell, man? Where was this all year? So it was like you almost give a tip of the cap to the Jets scouting team for figuring it out, but at the same time, like not figuring it out enough to have him on your team for multiple key weeks. That was also weird. So I guess they get a little bit of the benefit and a little bit of the con there. But the good news is, according to Breece Hall today, he expects to be ready for training camp. That's great news. Again, the Jets waited on his surgery. That is a technique that some medical people use that maybe the swelling goes down and you can attempt different. Again, I'm not a doctor. We just play one sometimes on these shows. But from what medical people said is that was going to be the right way for Breece Hall to maximize his recovery, maximize his rehab. And it sounds like, at least at this point in January, hearing this from Breece Hall, he should be ready to go for camp, which is exciting news because that was one of the most devastating losses for the Jets this year.
See, but the thing with me with James Robinson was I'm not entirely sure they gave him enough of a chance. And I thought they kind of missed a golden opportunity to activate him for the Jacksonville game. Now, look, I'm not saying the Jets would have won that game because that game was just horrible from start to finish.
Right.
But something told me just putting him on the field with a chip on his shoulder, maybe something sparks the offense. Because one thing I noticed about LaFleur was I kind of thought he abandoned the run too soon. And I don't know if that was just because the offensive line was just really struggling, especially towards the end of the season, or not. But he got very pass happy to the point where it kind of became a little bit of a detriment to guys like Flacco, to maybe to Zach, and even for the one time that Chris Streveler took the field when he underthrew CJ Uzomah, who was wide open for what would have been a touchdown. So with James Robinson, I just kind of feel like he didn't get enough of a shot. I thought that they were very big into Michael Carter, and Zonovan Knight was great. Don't get me wrong. Like, I really liked Zonovan Knight a lot. He was fantastic in the Buffalo game. You know, they were really struggling to tackle him. I think even against Minnesota, he was just a very tough guy to get down. But I thought when the running game really started to hit a snag, that might have been a good time maybe to change it up a little bit, especially because Carter was kind of useless at that point, and maybe give James Robinson more of a shot. Instead, he just became a healthy and active for the rest of the season. So
yeah, I mean, just to jump in, I mean, the one thing I would just say that's kind of weird is, okay, at certain points of the season, you wanted to deactivate him, and then when he clearly wasn't going to reach a rushing incentive that would have changed a draft pick, like the Jaguars game, I agree with you, Craig, that if you plug and play him there, there's a revenge angle. He is more motivated for that game than anything else, and to deactivate him is almost insulting. Like, Jaguars fans that were kind of leading up to the buildup of that game were telling me, like, see, bum, we knew it when we traded him. And I can only imagine how that made James feel. And I get it. You don't make decisions based on people's personal feelings, but, you know, the running game wasn't working, to your point. And to put him in there, first off, to mix it up can only help. And number two, he's going to be more motivated than anything. So yeah, I'm sure he found that very insulting. Obviously, he let his feelings be known during the season, how he felt about being an inactive and bench. Technically, he's a restricted free agent. It would make sense for the Jets to bring him back on a very low tender, but I imagine with how the season ended, they're going to rescind said restricted free agent tender, making him just straight up unrestricted, and will allow him to seek his own opportunities, I believe, based on what transpired in the second half of the year.
And that's what made LaFleur's press conference kind of weird right before the Dolphin game, when he he made a comment that he said, "Oh, we have plans for him." So almost like in a weird way, they're thinking about keeping him, but I mean,
it would make sense.
Their backfield's going to be loaded next year with Brees. I mean, I'm assuming Carter will be back, Zonovan Knight, and now possibly James Robinson. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it was just a very odd. I thought it was a little odd that LaFleur kind of hinted that, oh, we have really good plans for James and everything like that. But Robinson's like, what the hell are you talking about? I haven't played since the Buffalo game.
Right. So two things here. First off, again, we're hoping Brees is correct in his own abilities as a doctor to say, I'll be back by training camp. Maybe he starts off training camp on the PUP. Again, I'm totally speculating. This isn't reporting or sourced or anything, but I'm just kind of speaking here that maybe he starts the list on PUP. So the Jets, as a precaution, again, James Robinson could be brought back if they wanted to for super cheap on the RFA tender. And he's a proven running back in this league. I know it didn't really work out on the long stretch for the Jets, but with the Jaguars, like that first year, he was exceptional. And when you use him, especially in the scheme, which also was a big reason why I thought it would be great, he just seemed like a perfect puzzle piece fit for the scheme, is that bringing him back makes sense. Again, contractually, it makes sense. The Brees Hall situation, his health, they'll know better than any of us on the health thing. It makes sense to bring him back, quite frankly. It's just, and maybe Mike LaFleur, that's what he's saying, because the big plans obviously weren't for this season because he didn't play in that regular season finale. So again, it would make sense to keep him, but I would also understand on the other side, just because of how everything transpired, they just hit the eject button. But again, teams look out for themselves. They don't look out for the players. Again, if they have free restricted free agent control and just by, again, managerial contract, of course you bring him back. If he wants to whine and pout about it, oh well. Like, what's a third or fourth string running back going to do to the locker room? Again, if they really thought it was potential for anything cancerous or anything of that nature in terms of the effect him pouting could have, then they would dump him, obviously. But no, there is definitely a path for him to come back in 2023 for sure.
All right, I know you got to go, so I just have one more question, and that is,
baby.
Right now, you are the GM of the Jets. 2023, nice. Who is your starting quarterback? Who is your starting OC? Prediction, not necessarily who you want. Think about being your Joe Douglas. What do you think it's going to be?
God, the way that you set this up, unfortunately, I have to give the answer. That seems the most logical. And the quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, if I'm a betting man, he is guaranteed. So some of these other guys like Aaron Rodgers, he's under contract. So in some way, he could get traded. Lamar Jackson, in a wild world, he could get traded. But like the guy that is guaranteed to hit the market because of his contract renegotiation with the San Francisco 49ers is Jimmy Garoppolo. And of course, unless Jimmy Garoppolo secretly hates the guts of Mike LaFleur, Robert Saleh, and John Benton, all the 49ers connections, of course you would meet with them. They have a clear quarterback need, and they have all these talented weapons. Jimmy Garoppolo would be crazy, not at the very least, to meet with the Jets. And again, if you have a quarterback who's going to meet with a team that has all those connections and they have a need, that would be a very betting, thing that would make sense for him to be there. So again, my prediction, not necessarily what I want, because again, this guy has only been fully healthy once in his career. They went to the Super Bowl in 2019 when he was fully healthy, but again, to give him a 3-4 year deal for $35-40 million a year with those injuries scares the hell out of me. So I wouldn't want that, but that's what I would predict would happen. So Jimmy Garoppolo there. And again, not what I want. I'm just answering the question, Craig. That's I've have a gun to my head, and I'm doing anything.
Hard questions, you know that.
And that's it. And again, Craig, you have a gun to my head, and I'm trying to do anything to save my life by just telling the truth. And the truth is that Michael LaFleur, I think, is brought back. And but I think Robert Saleh is truthful in what he says. He's bringing a veteran guy in, a veteran quote-unquote presence. And if we're going to continue with the quote-unquote betting theme, it likely seems to be Gary Kubiak. Now, that's a name everyone is saying. There is a direct connection. He worked with Robert Saleh down in Houston, which was Robert Saleh's real first NFL opportunity. Kubiak has been retired for the last few years. His last job was with the Minnesota Vikings in 2020 as their assistant head coach and offensive coordinator. He has a tight relationship with Saleh. And for this role, they're looking for this quasi-consultant overseer role. like it seems like Gary Kubiak could just collect a paycheck for being grandpa in the room. And I think that would be very interesting to him and enticing, not having to have the full responsibilities of an offensive coordinator, but just give his guidance and suggestions, tips and tricks from doing it for a long time and winning a lot of Super Bowls, both as a head coach and an assistant. So I think that's most likely Jimmy Garoppolo, Mike LaFleur, Gary Kubiak is level an offensive assistant, and it's San Francisco East, the New York 49ers. Let's roll it out and see if they can have a modicum of success that the actual 49ers have had over the last batch of years.
Boy Green, man, this was awesome. Thank you for coming on our show on short notice. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I look forward to your stuff popping up on my Facebook feed. And you'll definitely be seeing some comments on me on your stuff in the future. But thank you again so much. And your insight is always on point.
Well, I really appreciate that. And thank you for the graphics team getting this billboard together. Thank you, Paul, right there. I really appreciate that. I see how much you guys put into that.
We operate
a lot of time into that one.
You guys don't play around, and I can only respect that. So both Chris and Craig, thank you so much for bringing me on the show. I'm looking forward to a future appearance. If I'm able to make it on, that would be spectacular. So, guys, this was fun. And again, thank you so much for the invite. That's awesome.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Take care of yourself. All right. And then definitely want to have you on again real soon.
All right. Looking forward to it. Anytime, fellas. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Appreciate it. That is the one and only Boy Green, Paul Esden Jr. Check out his stuff on Heavy on Jets, heavy.com. His stuff is awesome. And he is, like I told Klim, he was definitely going to be a ball of fire, and he didn't disappoint. But,
that guy, he has a podcast, right?
He has a podcast. He's on Facebook. He has a YouTube channel also. And
yeah, I got
follow Heavy on Jets, and he posts stuff all the time. Every day he's posting like multiple articles a day. So you should definitely check it out.
I like him. He's good.
And one thing that's cool about Paul is he responds to you. Like if you have an opinion, he'll like when he put something up about the quarterback situation, and I wrote back to him and I said, this was about thinking about who the quarterbacks were that were going to be available, and I said, I'm going to be honest, I would roll with Mike White in 2023. Because I just wasn't overly impressed with all the quarterbacks that are available. Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson are a pipe dream. So obviously, if you get a chance to get them, you take it. No question. But I'm not sold on the possibility of Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo making this team that much better. And if I could be really honest, Klim, the guy I'd probably want, but I know I'm not going to get, is Daniel Jones. Because Daniel Jones' legs that's going to be a huge factor in his play. He'll have much better receivers than he does have with the Giants. I just don't think Daniel Jones is going to want to leave the Giants because they finally unlocked something out of him. And it took 4 years, but they finally unlocked something out of Daniel Jones. So
yeah, I know. He's definitely earned himself a contract for sure.
Absolutely. So the thing is that when I wrote that, he basically was very blunt. He was right. He was 100% right. He basically said, he goes, I see what you're saying, but there's no way that Saleh and Douglas are going to roll the dice on Mike White, knowing full well their jobs are on the line in 2024. And he's right. I think he's 100% right. So,
and I've been talking about this with Mike Laws, and me and him were like, if the Jets don't make the playoffs next year, especially with how, like I said, how good of a defense we saw this year, how good we saw Garrett Wilson play, how good we saw Breece Hall play, all our young guys. If we don't make the playoffs next year, I would not be surprised if Robert Saleh is fired.
No, he will be fired. It's not about being surprised. He will be fired, and so will Joe Douglas. They have to make the playoffs next year. Jet fans are not going to want to stomach another 7-10 season. They're not going to want to stomach another 8-9 season. They're going to want to win at least 10 games next year. Yeah. They're going to want a 10-7 record next year. Now, in retrospect, when you look at it, them finishing in last place this year was not a terrible thing because it gave them easier opponents for next year because now they play the Houston Texans, they play the Atlanta Falcons, they play the Cleveland Browns, they play the Raiders. So, you take that part of it. But you could also argue that this is one of the worst years to be looking for a quarterback.
Oh yeah, like it's not an ideal year.
It's just mediocre to me. And the thing is, the Jets are not going to spend the first round pick on C.J. Stroud at 13 or the kid from Kentucky, Levis. They're not going to get Bryce Young. They don't have enough to trade up to get Bryce Young. So this is pretty much. I'm trying to like kind of figure it out, because the problem I have with Jimmy Garoppolo is he has probably all the leverage in negotiations with the Jets. Okay? He could ask for whatever he wants. He could say, okay, I want a 4-year deal for $100 million. Hypothetically, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Joe Douglas is known to not really break the bank for those types of contracts. He doesn't want to kill the cap with those contracts. Derek Carr next year is going to be making $34 million. It's a lot of money, man. And if they bring him in at $34 million, it's going to hinder what you can do in the offseason, because you're going to be limited in cap space. Then you're going to have to cut guys like Corey Davis. You have to cut Carl Lawson. You may have to cut Jordan Whitehead. And then you got to fill other positions. So getting Derek Carr is one thing. You get the quarterback you want, but that may mean that you may not have enough money to go get an offensive lineman. So you may be stuck in a spot where you may have to go with Becton again.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to pray that he stays healthy.
Right.
So, but looking at Ryan Tannehill does nothing for me. Derek Carr, I've always found to be very overrated. Jimmy Garoppolo, the only issue I have with Jimmy Garoppolo is his injury history. His injuries scared the shit out of me. And Klim, week 3, Jimmy Garoppolo, God forbid, hurts himself, every Jet fan is going to jump off a freaking building, because they're just not going to want it. And the thing is, it's like then you're going to have to rely on Zach Wilson. And I was listening to Jake's show today. He had Will Parkinson on. Will Parkinson's actually really good. He's part of like Turn on the Jets. And he made a really good point today. He said, look, what if they get Jimmy Garoppolo and then Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt? And he was talking about Zach Wilson. And he said, and Zach Wilson's the backup. And Zach Wilson has to go out there. And the first couple of plays, Zach Wilson is back to being Zach Wilson, where he can't hit the receiver. He's missing guys left and right. Those are horrible interception. He's going to get destroyed by this fan base.
Oh, without a doubt. And I'm with you. That's why, like, when you look at it, like, I really don't want Jimmy G or Derek Carr. Like, I'm with you on that, because, like you mentioned, Jimmy G, constantly injury prone, but I did like what Paul said about, maybe, Jimmy G plays 6 to 8 games or whatever it is, and Zach Wilson comes in. Maybe that's, what he needed, but like you said, it's very easy that he could be back to his old ways and he just suck. So, and then the thing with Derek Carr too is Derek Carr really couldn't do anything with the Raiders with a competent offense. You had Josh Jacobs there, who was the number one running back in the league this year.
That's what I mean.
And he had Devontae Adams, like the best wide receiver in the league. Like, and they couldn't win the West. Like,
it looked like he was always struggling. And I know a lot of people are gonna it's like, remember I used to say about Darnold, the Darnold defenders, right? And everybody always had an excuse why Sam Darnold was not playing well. It was either lack of weapons, or it was Adam Gase, or it was this, or it was that. And then we just ultimately, you and I realized that he just wasn't as good as everybody made him out to be.
Right.
And everybody was ready to kill the Jets because, they ruined him. He went to Carolina, had the much better weapons than he had with the Jets, and he still sucked in Carolina.
Yep.
So what scares me about Derek Carr, and this is another part of it too, this is a big part of it, okay? Any veteran quarterback that comes to this team in 2023, the pressure that's going to be on said player is going to be ridiculously large. Derek Carr is going to be expected to carry this team on his back.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be expected to carry this team on his back. Hell, if the Jets wound up with Geno Smith, he would be expected to carry this team on his back. Okay? The pressure that New York puts on these guys, they can't recover from it. It's too much. Whether it's the media, whether it's the fan base. The fan base. Look how quickly, once again, right? Fucking Jet fans. This is what I mean with these pricks. Okay? Because what do? Mike White, Oh, we want Mike White. We want Mike White. We want him. We love him. He's the new savior of the franchise. Took one bad game against Seattle, and they ran him out of town.
Yep.
They ran him out of town, just like last year for the Buffalo game. The minute he played like shit against Buffalo, ran him out of town. And that was it. Nobody talked about Mike White again until Zach started playing like shit.
Yep.
And Flacco was basically just a statue.
I mean, that's why I kind of think, like you mentioned, like guys like Derek Carr, Jimmy G, like New York is going to be put on their back if they come here. And that's why I kind of think like
on their shoulders. And in New York City, if you don't do well in week 3, you're going to have Brian Costello ripping you a new asshole in the papers. You're going to have Connor Hughes ripping you apart on SNY. You're going to have all the podcasts ripping you apart. That's a fact.
No, it really is. It really is. And that's why, like I said, I know it's a pipe dream. I really know it is. But the only person who can probably handle it is Aaron Rodgers. It's a pipe dream. I know. But, I mean, we got to win now. We're set up to win now with the way our defense looks, the way our young wide receivers look. You got to win now. And I think if you got to do whatever it takes. If it costs a first-round pick, by all means, send it for Aaron Rodgers, because he's the only one who, God forbid, I mean, at that point, it's like bringing in Brett Favre, like when we did in 2009 or 08, whenever it was.
The thing about Rodgers is part of me thinks that this late in his career, I don't think he wants to deal with the pressure of being in New York.
True.
Because I don't even think that Favre wanted the pressure of being in New York. Favre just wanted to play football.
Right.
And he wasn't going to play with the Green Bay Packers. So the only team that was coming to call for him were the Jets. So he went to the Jets. I can't picture Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. I just can't. Now, look, I don't know what the tension is between Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. There's a lot of conflicting reports. Some people think it's worse than we originally think. Other people think it's not a big deal and it'll get resolved. The fact is he's missed 5 games with an injury, which is not a good sign. Not to mention he may not play in the playoff game against Cincinnati on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day they play. So that's another issue, because he's not going to break his back for the Baltimore Ravens if he's not going to get paid.
True.
And he's a free agent. But outside of those 2 guys, every other quarterback, you bring in Ryan Tannehill, he's going to be expected to be the savior. If you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, forget it. The fact that he's Saleh, he knows Mike LaFleur's offense, he knows Saleh, he knows everybody, he is going to be expected to be Tom Brady.
Yep.
And that amount of pressure, because this fan base is so starved for competency at quarterback. It's not even about Pro Bowl quarterback. Competency. They're going to basically put the weight of the world on this guy's shoulders, and he's not going to be able to handle it.
Right.
He's going to get spooked by the media. He's going to get spooked by the media giving him a hard time. He's going to be combative with the media. They're not used to it. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the same fucking fan base, mind you, that turns around and tells everybody how, oh my God, the Jets completely mishandled Geno Smith. And we didn't give him enough time to develop. This is what I'm talking about. The minute they see a guy do well in another team, the Jets are a disaster.
Like, to go back to even like that, I have no ill will against Geno. Do I think I have no ill will. He had 2 years. Unfortunately, he got his shit knocked out. Ryan Fitzpatrick took over, and the New York the Jets fans fell in love with Fitzpatrick, and that in that season alone, unfortunately, signed Geno Smith's fate. Not that he was bad, not that he was underdeveloped or anything like that, just that the Jets fans fell in love with Fitzmagic, and they loved him in 2015. They wanted him back in 2016 with what they got. And then 2017 was Josh McCown. So Geno Smith had look. I'm not saying it was unfair in New York, but his fate was signed, sealed, and delivered. Unfortunately,
I get what you're saying, and you're right. But like, for example, you take a guy like you take a guy like Garoppolo, you take a guy like Tannehill. Tannehill may not be terrible, but again, you're talking about a team, a coach, like you can't fuck this up is basically my point. You can't make this a disastrous pick. You have to hit this one out of the park because your jobs are on the line. You already know you're not going to start over with a first-round quarterback. So you can forget C.J. Stroud. You can forget Levis. You can forget Anthony Richardson if he even is in the first round. So it's going to be a veteran. We know that. The question becomes, which veteran do you feel the most comfortable with? And like I said, I don't feel comfortable with any of them. Garoppolo scares the shit out of me. And I'm going to tell you something right now. And don't sleep on this. Don't be surprised if the Patriots move on from Mac Jones and they find a way to bring Jimmy G to New England. Do not be surprised, man. I could see 3 teams going after Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason besides the Jets. One has no chance. The other 2 have a slight chance. Patriots, Raiders.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
McDaniels and the guy who runs the GM is from the Patriots. Don't sleep on that possibility. That's all I'm going to say. It's definitely possible, but the offensive players are pretty much in place. You have to fix the line a little bit. I don't think the line needs a complete overhaul. You know, I think Laken Tomlinson will be better next year. I think having Elijah Vera Tucker back will be huge. You know, I could see the Jets trying to bring back Connor McGovern on a 1-year deal and maybe draft a center this year, and then maybe by 2024 put that kid in the lineup. You know, as for the right tackle and left tackle spot, if they hold on to their pick at 13, my guess is they'll take a lineman in the first round, and then just kind of figure out the rest of it. You already know you have the weapons in place on offense. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight. If you decide to bring James Robinson back, you have C.J. Uzomah, you have Ty Conklin, you have Jeremy Ruckert, you have Elijah Moore, you have Garrett Wilson. I don't think Corey Davis will be back. I think he'll be a cut. Denzel Mims might be back. I don't know if he'll be back, though. Possible. The number one issue I'm having with the Jets moving forward is not necessarily the roster. It's the fact that there's a level of immaturity with this team that's bothering me. It's the fact that they don't get up for those games. It's the fact that the way they kind of go into these games, the Jaguar game was a perfect example. This is a huge game coming off a tough loss against Detroit on a short week. Okay? And they go to the freaking game, and you got one guy dressed as the Grinch. You got another guy, I think it was Quincy Williams or John Franklin Myers doing warm-ups in a Grinch costume. That's what I mean. You're not taking it seriously. You're not focused on what's going on. And I blame Saleh for that. Saleh has to keep these guys focused. He's got to keep these guys focused on the task at hand, and that is beating the Jaguars, a team you can beat. Same thing with the Seahawks game. You get a second chance to fulfill your playoff destiny, Clint. And the Jets go to Seattle. Not an easy place to play. 12th man, I've been to that stadium. That stadium is as loud as people say it is. The fan base is rabid in Seattle. You get Mike White back. Great. You know, we got our quarterback, the guy who can move the ball down the field. And again, the team looks unprepared. First play of the game, Kenneth Walker, 60-yard run. Quincy Williams, too many times this year, over pursues the running back or the receiver or whoever. Or he misses tackles or he has dumb penalties. Mike White didn't have a good game. Jet fans trying to blame it on the injury. Well, he shouldn't have been out there. No, he was fucking medically cleared. I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Doctors are not going to put him out there if they don't think he can play.
Yeah.
If he's able to play and he's healthy and he's medically cleared, That's all you need to know. Jet fans are not doctors. Well, maybe some of them are. But they don't work for the goddamn team. Okay? And they're trying to pin it on things. And then when all else failed and White was terrible, ran him out of town. Just like that. Now, he would have played Miami, but then they decided they didn't want him to play. Fine. Fair enough. But this team does not get up for big games.
You're absolutely right. And I would say even look back at earlier in the season, both Patriots games. Those games were crucial. Those games were crucial wins that we needed. And we could have won both of those games. But, like you mentioned, didn't show up. Defense did, not the offense, though.
Listen, they played well. They played well against the Vikings. Barrios catches that touchdown. We might be singing a different tune here.
Yeah.
They played well against Buffalo. They didn't play bad against Buffalo. In Buffalo, I didn't think they played bad at all. White got drilled. Flacco went in the game, played like shit. But then they come home against Detroit. Zach gets them the lead on a late touchdown to Uzama, and the defense just collapses. Just collapse. And then they pull a complete no-show against the Jaguars. I mean, that can't happen. That just cannot happen. And I blame Saleh for that. Where's the passion? Where's the motivation? Where is the team that's going to run through a brick wall for Saleh? Where's the team that's going to play their heart out for their coach? Oh, yeah, forgot. They're on the other side of Jersey. I mean, that's a big deal to me. That's a major indictment on Robert Saleh, and I'm a big Saleh fan.
Like you just mentioned, like you heard very actively how well the Giants players love Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
You really haven't heard much about players saying, yeah, we love Robert Saleh. You know, at least in the past you heard it with when Jamal Adams was here, you always heard him say, oh, we love Todd Bowles. We love Todd Bowles. That's cool. It doesn't look like you love Todd Bowles, but that's fine. At least you're verbal about it. You're not really hearing that much about Robert Saleh. Look, I like Robert Saleh. I think he's a good coach. You know, 7 wins for a team that should have won 3 games this year. Can't really complain, but can complain at the same time. But we'll get into that later. You're not really hearing guys like Garrett Wilson or, you know, even a veteran guy like Dwayne Brown come out and be like, yeah, Robert Saleh, hell of a head coach, you know, love this guy. Or even CJ Mosley, who's been here for 4 years. You're not really hearing these guys come out and be like, you know what? Here's a brick wall. I'm going to run right through it for him.
I see what you're saying, but you also don't have to say it as much either. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I love the guy. Like, you don't have to have like an obsession with loving Robert Saleh.
Right.
That's fine. The part that bothers me is on game day, this team is not showing up. They come out on games very flat. Seahawks game, they were flat. But again, you have a golden opportunity. Fulfill your destiny. Just win out the last 2 games. And they just got destroyed. You know? And then again, it's just like what I'm talking about. It's like on the last game of the season. This is what I'm talking about, the immaturity, okay? You have fucking Braxton Berrios, who's done little to nothing this year, showing up at the game with like, looking like, you know, he's ready to go on the beach and go get a tan or something. And like, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of being nitpicky about it, but it kind of is a microcosm of what the whole season's been about.
Especially with a guy like Braxton Berrios, who we gave you a contract at the end of last year, thinking, oh yeah, you know, one of the best return guys in the game, you know, and he'll be a crucial part of this offense. The guy sucked this year. He was terrible.
And if I could forgive all that, like, you know, the one thing that gets on my nerves is the way that there's a lot of contradictory among the media or like among the beat writers. Because you're telling me that Joe Douglas failed to fix the offensive line, okay? You know, it wasn't for a lack of trying.
Mm-hmm.
He went out and got Laken Tomlinson. You know, I didn't necessarily agree with the fact of going with Becton, but if we drafted Ike Ekwonu, we wouldn't have had Sauce because Sauce would have wound up going to the Giants.
Right.
So that's a pick your poison type of thing. Laken Tomlinson, he has Elijah Vera Tucker, he has Connor McGovern. George Fant was supposed to come back, he got hurt. So they brought in Dwayne Brown, who actually did a really good job up until the point that he messed up his shoulder, and that was it. It's like they're killing him for not fixing the line, but then they're also saying, well, he had three of his tackles were hurt and a guard was hurt. Vera Tucker went out for the season. See? So it's like, make up your mind. It's like, what?
You're absolutely right on that. And even to go off that, look at guys like Max Mitchell. I mean, yeah, he only played like 2 or 3 games. He didn't play a lot of games, but for the games he played, he stepped up very good. And I think the unsung hero of this offense was Nate Herbig. I thought he was very good all year. Like he's not Elijah Vera Tucker. I understand that. But for what he was doing, it wasn't awful. He was a decent offensive lineman for us this year.
Something tells me Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be the right tackle next year.
You know what? As we were talking about linemen earlier with Paul, I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? I would not be surprised if they definitely going to shift around the offensive line this year, whether Herbig plays maybe center or Vera Tucker plays right tackle and they draft someone, whoever it is. This offensive line is getting shifted in some sort of way where I think it could turn out good for the Jets.
I mean, it's just that's probably the number one thing that bothered me. We know we have the talent on the roster, but Saleh was also not pushing the right buttons. But I can't fire him yet because if you fire him after 2 years, you're not going to get anybody to coach this team.
Right.
There's no job security here. But Saleh deserves another year. So let me get that out of the way too. They went from a 4-win team to a 7-win team. They went from a defense that finished dead last in the league last year to like a top 10 unit. I think they finished 5th overall, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay. So that's progress. Now it's a case of getting the offense fixed. And there's not a lot that has to be done because you have the talent.
Yeah.
You have a 1,000-yard receiver in Garrett Wilson, who's on a rookie contract, by the way. You have Elijah Moore, who I think will have a better season when there's more consistency under center. Maybe even Denzel Mims. I think bringing him back would not be a bad idea. You have 3 good tight ends in Uzama, Conklin, and Rucker. Got to find a way to make it work. You have good running backs with Breece Hall, Zonovan Knight, Michael Carter. If you decide to bring James Robinson back, great. Now it's just a case of getting that quarterback to make it a formidable unit. And like Paul said, that veteran offensive assistant, whether it's a Gary Kubiak. There was a rumor, there was a possibility of a guy like Nathaniel Hackett. What a lot of people are going to say. Well, my God, he was terrible in Denver. Yes, but he's not the head coach here. He's going to be working with the quarterback. And last time I checked, he did a pretty decent job developing Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it's like Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles was a great defensive coordinator, not a great head coach.
Yeah. So you just hope that Saleh is not going to become another Wade Phillips. To a lesser extent, another Rex Ryan. But there's like so many avenues they could go down for the quarterback spot, but none of them are interesting except you're willing to break the bank to get Lamar Jackson. And think about it. I always rip Joe Beningo, despite the fact he looks like a rat. Right?
Yeah.
So did you hear his big quarterback guy that he wants?
No, what does he say?
Last week, he was like, last week he was ready to fire LaFleur.
Okay.
And he was talking about possibly having Baker Mayfield be the quarterback of the Jets next year.
Is he stupid?
Baker Mayfield.
The dude just lost his job to fucking Sam Darnold. Like,
now, here's even better. Now this week, he wants Derek Carr, and he wants to retain Mike LaFleur. It's like
Like I want to like Beningo so much, and I do to a point, but he's such a Monday morning quarterback. It's so annoying.
That's why I can't listen to WFAN, especially like Brandon Tierney's another one. He's another guy.
Like I haven't listened. I can't like I can't listen to as much as I like Evan Roberts. Like I can't listen to him and Carton because they don't talk sports. It's just bullshit for like 4 hours. Tiki and Tierney is okay. I don't mind them, but I mainly just listen to ESPN.
But this is a make or break season for. This is obviously 2023. It's a make or break for Joe Douglas. He's 26-40 as a head coach, as a GM. It's not good enough. It's just not.
Yeah. And I'll make the prediction right now. Zach Wilson's not on the roster in 2023. I just don't see it. I cannot. If you're bringing in a Lamar Jackson, Jimmy G, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, whoever it is, for say it's going to be a multi-year deal. It's not just going to be a one and done deal.
I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to say this, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but I have a gut feeling. I have a gut feeling that Zach Wilson is going to be QB2 next year.
I don't know, man.
And I think they're basically going to kind of start over with him. I think he's going to learn. He's going to be coached up by whoever the offensive assistant is, whether it's Kubiak or a veteran offensive guy. I think they will go with whoever. Honestly, I think some team is going to come out of nowhere and trade for Carr. My gut tells me it's the Commanders. My gut tells me it's the Commanders. But the only thing about the Commanders is I don't think they have the draft capital to do it because they traded a bunch of picks last year to get Carson Wentz, and that didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but something tells me the Commanders are going to be a team that they may give the Raiders a first-round pick to get Derek Carr.
I mean, that'd be crazy, but
there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks this year. Tampa Bay, if Brady retires, needs a quarterback. Carolina needs a quarterback. Atlanta needs a quarterback. The Saints need a quarterback. The Texans are probably going to most likely draft Bryce Young, but a team may sneak up and trade with the Bears to get Bryce Young, and that could leave the Texans screwed.
That's true.
I mean, think about all the other teams that need quarterbacks. Washington needs a quarterback. I don't think anybody in the NFC North needs one, or the AFC North. You know, the Raiders need a quarterback. Denver, Kansas City, and the Chargers don't. Colts. Well, I think the Colts will draft a guy. You know, the Titans. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, and I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen there. I really don't. But there's going to be some surprises. You know, it was a disappointing season because when they went on that run, everything changed. All of a sudden, it was about the Jets being a playoff team and everything, and then they just collapsed. I hope next year there is a major sense of urgency from guys like Saleh. I need to see Saleh more passionate on the sideline. I need to see him ripping guys a little bit. That's the problem. The other problem I have with Saleh, he's too nice. He's too nice. He's not that guy that gets in your face when you mess up. He's not that guy that's going to get in Zach Wilson's face when he bounces a pass to a running back on a screen and say, you need to cut the shit. I mean, enough is enough. What the hell is this?
Right.
He doesn't do that. You know who Saleh reminds me of in a weird way, only he's better? Luis Rojas. The reason why I say that is because how many times when Luis Rojas was the manager of the Mets and the Mets were on a losing streak, and what would Luis Rojas say after every loss? No, we're almost there. We just got to keep grinding. That was his favorite word, grinding, right?
Yeah.
Say it all the time. Well, we just got to keep. We're just grinding, and we're gonna, everything's gonna be okay and everything. And it never was okay.
No, never was.
Because Luis Rojas was a manager who didn't make the Mets players see what was at stake, and it burned them. It completely burned them. In a way, Buck Showalter did not show the Met players what was at stake. That's why they got their asses kicked in the wild card series against Padres. That's why they got their ass kicked in a do-or-die division-winning series against Atlanta. They had no clue what they were walking into. I see a lot of the same traits in Robert Saleh. I'm hoping that's not the case because I don't want to have another situation where I'm looking for a coach next year.
Right.
Like, I want to have a coach. I want to re-sign a coach to like a 3-year extension.
That'd be nice.
You know, like that's all I want. I mean, I don't think that's not a tall order. But I need to see more passion out of Robert Saleh. I don't see it. And it worries me.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. It just worries me. Because I think this team is on the cusp of something very good.
Right.
But I'm having my doubts as to whether Robert Saleh is the right guy to lead them. And that's what worries me more than anything. And the truth is, next year, I don't know who's available that's going to be worth a shot. I don't know what free agent coach is going to be out there. Just like this year. You know, right now you have 2 guys that got fired today. Cliff Kingsbury and Lovie Smith. I don't even know who the best coaching candidate would be. Everybody keeps saying Sean Payton. I'm tired of hearing about Sean Payton, man. Sean Payton won a Super Bowl 14 years ago. Why do people think he's such a good coach? Like, okay, he gets the teams to the playoffs. And then what? I could easily argue that he wasted a lot of Drew Brees' career.
Yeah.
And do I really want to give up a first-round pick for a coach? For a head coach? Harbaugh's not coming here, so forget Harbaugh. Harbaugh's already staying in Michigan, actually, I think, from what I heard. But outside of that, okay, Wink Martindale's a possibility. No one's mentioned Eric Bieniemy yet. D'Amico Ryans is rumored to be a possibility, 49ers defensive coordinator. Outside of that, I don't really know who else is available outside of Sean Payton, and, you know, that's it. I mean, Dan Quinn, okay, maybe. But I want to be able to re-sign Robert Saleh to a 3-year extension. I want to be able to bring Joe Douglas back.
It would just be a nice change of pace to like hold on to a coach for more than one contract.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time we've done it. Probably not since Rex.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not even sure if we did hold the Rex for. No, I don't think we did. I don't think we ever re-signed Rex. I think.
No, we must have because we got him in 2009. He left in 2014. So unless we gave him a 5-year deal right off the bat.
I think we gave Bowles and McCagnon a 1-year extension. Like when they were like lame duck status, so they gave him an extra year. And that was when Bowles was terrible. But it's like the Jets have had these real polarizing coaches, right? Todd Bowles was a guy that everybody supposedly loved to play for, and then they never showed up on game day to play for him.
Right.
Adam Gase was a guy excuse me. Adam Gase was a guy who everybody hated and didn't want to play for, and they definitely showed it on game day. And Robert Saleh is a guy that is supposed to have all this passion and motivation. And again, we just don't see it on game day. And for all the Jet fans who sit there and go on and on about Woody Johnson, I don't think Woody Johnson's a bad owner. Woody Johnson gives you guys what you want, and you still fucking complain.
Yeah. No, literally, though.
You guys wanted Robert Saleh. He gave you Robert Saleh. He opens up the checkbook to sign Corey Davis, to sign Carl Lawson, to sign Laken Tomlinson. It's on the players, man. They need to start playing better. I think Woody does everything he can. He wants to win as an owner. Nobody holds these players accountable anymore. It's like, come on. It's like if the Jets lose, it's the coach's fault. And if it's not the coach's fault, then it's the owner's fault. The ownership sucks, so we got to get rid of the owners because that's going to make everything that much better. Is just getting new owners. Because of course that's the easiest solution. Clint. Let's get a new owner, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but if I'm paying the amount of money I'm paying for the New York Jets, I want some fucking answers as to why this team collapsed and lost 6 in a row and we knocked ourselves out of the playoffs.
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna say. I'll say this about the Jets this year: it was disappointing / successful season because successful in the fact that no one thought the Jets would win 7 games this year. Disappointing in the fact that when we saw how good we were, we expected to be in the playoffs, and then had an epic meltdown the second half of the season.
You're right.
It's got to be. I don't know, man.
When was the last time we could be excited about drafts? Like all these, the 2022 class looks fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
2021 class hit a little bit of a snag this year, but maybe next year they'll be better. But it bothers me to the core that, again, and I say it, fans, I get it. It's frustrating. You just want to win. You're tired of losing and everything. I get it. Okay? But you can't sit there and point the finger at the owner and say it's the owner's fault. You can't sit there and point the finger at, Adam Gase, even though he's not even here, and say, well, see what happens with Gase if we would have had Trevor Lawrence if it wasn't for Adam Gase, And yeah, you're probably right. You would have had Trevor Lawrence, but you don't have Trevor Lawrence. So, but again, it just becomes tiresome to hear all the time. The other day, I was talking to a Jet fan online. It's nice, I was having a friendly debate about it, and somehow the Gardner Minshew came up. And I said, look, Gardner Minshew is a nice player, but I am not going to gift wrap him the starting job.
Right.
It's not going to happen. He's going to have to fight for it. And the guy proceeded to give me his stats in Jacksonville for the 2 years he was in Jacksonville. And don't get me wrong, his stats were impressive. I'm not saying he wasn't. But do you find it alarming that nobody was interested in him to be their starting quarterback after 2 good years in Jacksonville?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, look, I like Gardner Minshew a lot. And I do. Like, but to your point, yeah. Like, there's a reason he wasn't no one went after him as a starting quarterback. Like, there's a reason that he's not a starting quarterback now. I mean, yeah, great backup. Probably one of the best backups in the league to have. And you saw that when he played with the Eagles. But there's a reason he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL.
And the thing is, in 2 games this year, he's been hot and cold. He's had he didn't play well against the Saints. He played well he played decent against the Cowboys. But I can't, if I'm Joe Douglas and I'm Robert Saleh, I can't put my faith in Gardner Minshew to carry me to the playoffs. That's just simply unrealistic. And the guy goes, well, he's better than what you have. I beg to differ.
I'll say, is he?
Differ. Honestly, if I had a choice between Gardner Minshew and Mike White, they're basically the same quarterback. I'll roll with White. What do I have to lose? But the thing is that if you're the owner of a football team, what are you going to do? And that's where fans, I think, bother me because they're like, oh, well, we have to go get this guy. They're demanding that we hire Frank Reich to be the offensive coordinator. And it's like, and if I'm Frank Reich, why do I want to come here? Your whole coaching staff may be fired next year, which is I'm going to be out of a job in a year. Like, why do I want that? I don't want that. It's not as easy to be an owner the way everybody thinks it is. It's not easy to be a general manager the way everybody thinks it is. Everybody thinks it's like, oh, yeah, just throw money here, throw money there, throw money here, throw money there. You have a salary cap. You have to cut guys. I mean, you can't keep everybody.
Yeah. Just,
I mean, like I said, I don't love these quarterbacks for 2023. I don't. I mean, I guess I have to pick one, so spin the wheel, Klim. That's basically what it is. It's basically
no, it really is. And look, I told you who I want. I know it's a long shot. I know it's pipe dream. I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers.
Out of all the guys, I would take Lamar. I would take Lamar Jackson by default.
Well, I wouldn't hate Lamar. Don't get me wrong. Wouldn't hate Lamar, but my pipe dream that I want is Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, I agree with I agree with Paul. I think it's going to wind up being Garoppolo. But like I said, don't be surprised if a team sneaks in and grabs him. Don't be surprised, man. I'm telling you right now, if the Jets are going to really go hard after Jimmy Garoppolo, they better do it on day one. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have him by the balls.
Mm-hmm. No, without a doubt.
Have him by the balls. He knows exactly what he wants, and he knows that the Jets desperately need him. And that's all going to come into play when it comes time to negotiate a contract.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So, all right. Before we get out of here, you got anything else?
Yeah, Carlos Correa situation. From what I'm hearing is, I think that it sounds like the Mets are going to be the ones to sign him, but is it going to be with that 12-year deal? Is there going to be a restructured kind of contract?
It's not. I don't think it's going to be restructured. However, I think they're trying to put language in the contract that protects the Mets.
Okay.
The issue I have with this Carlos Correa thing is this really came up like this is like a deal breaker for you. I mean, the San Francisco Giants had a red flag, something in his medicals. The Mets fucking swooped in and signed him, and now the Mets have a red flag on the medicals.
Yeah. It's not like this was a surprise.
So if you knew the Giants had an issue with the medicals, then why would you swoop in to sign him? He's excited to come to the Mets. Supposedly he spear tackled Scott Boras in the hallway of a hotel room, of his hotel. And then now you're now you're basically saying, well, we don't know if we're going to sign him because of, I think it was an injury in minor league ball or something like that. Or
yeah, it was like an injury like 6 or 7 years ago, something to that effect. And it's like
it hasn't affected him yet.
Yeah, it's
like honestly, this is what I would do if I were the Mets, and I'll keep it very simple. Okay, 3 years you opt out. You have a team option to opt out after 3 years. Correa makes $90 million. The Mets get what they need. If the Mets like what they see, they'll just keep paying.
Yeah,
that's it. There's your clause. That's all you really need.
Simple enough.
Okay. Carlos Correa will walk away with at least $90 million in 3 years. Okay. So I really don't see what the problem is at this point. I think if the Mets don't get this done, I think it's not going to look very good for them.
No, definitely not. Yeah, because it's like, well, what the fuck?
Which is all the more reason why I think they will get it done, because I don't think Carlos Correa wants to go anywhere else.
No, I'm pretty sure he's come out and said that he doesn't want to play anywhere else. Like, it's the Mets or nothing. Like, and plus, I think Steve Cohen will not let him go. You know, like he'll do everything possible to get whatever is wrong with him fixed.
Well, it's very simple. Just DH him a little bit more than you would like.
Yeah.
I mean, like you know, sometimes you got to just kind of protect the player from themselves. So sometimes you're just going to have to DH him on a few. You know, he's not going to play third base 162 games this year.
Right.
But you figure it out. I mean, I know it's for 12 years and everything, and I think that's the issue, is the fact that it's such a long-term contract. You know, apparently Jim Bowden came out today and said that he has sources saying that Correa will be a Met,
mm-hmm.
and that the language is just getting figured out. And it's like very close to happening. I mean, if they wind up with Carlos Correa, holy shit, that offense is going to be crazy.
Oh yeah, when it was already like set in stone. When we thought it was set in stone that Correa was going to be here, I was looking at the lineup. I'm like, Holy shit! Like 1 through 7 is going to be insane.
Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, Correa, McNeil. Who would be 7th?
Probably, I think Alvarez is taking the DH spot.
Okay, or Vogelbach.
Yeah.
They're talking about having Beatty play left field.
Yes.
Because they want to keep him. They don't want to trade him. And which put him 8th. And I would guess whoever the catcher is. Narvaez. Omar Narvaez. No, it's not Nito.
Oh, yeah, the new guy.
Narvaez from Milwaukee. A rotation of Verlander, Scherzer, Senga. I totally forgot about him.
Oh, yeah.
Jose Quintana and Carlos Carrasco.
It's not a bad. That's not. Look, I mean, if the Mets don't make the World Series, look, I mean, it's World Series or bust this year for the Mets. That's what it is at this point.
But I think the Correa deal will wind up getting done. I just think it's going to be dragged out a little bit. But I don't see a situation where Steve Cohen's going to walk away from this deal. Carlos Correa wants to be here. Steve Cohen, desperately wants him here. I just don't see any reason to walk away from this deal. You know, work out the language to protect yourself so Correa gets paid and everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And I think I just think it'll get done. But I just don't see. I would be stunned if the Mets walked away from the deal.
No, without a doubt. I'm with you on that one. Like, I'd be very shocked that Carlos Correa is in a Met in 2023.
By the way, next Creative Pro show, February 19th. Not sure if you saw it. I got my tickets today.
I depending on, because I don't know what my schedule is going to be like with work now, but barring that I can, I'll be there.
So I'll be sitting front row. So right now, I just saw they only have a couple of additions like Heath Slater and Alex Riley from WWE.
Yeah, I saw Alex Riley. I saw Bear Bronson. I saw Notorious Mimi.
Aaron Warren. VSK will be there. Bryce Donovan's hurt, so I don't think he's going to be there.
Probably Eric James. You know, the usuals.
Yeah, Bryce Donovan. So we got to get some cap guys on the show.
Yes, we do.
Right. So
I'll work on that.
We got to try to get Rourke on, or even Jack.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, Jack's not on the poster, but I'm assuming he's going to be there with Draw.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So that's it. I mean, it was pretty much Correa, the Jets. Durant is hurt. Durant is out for 2 weeks, even though the Nets are playing at their best. So hopefully the Nets can just weather the storm. And DeMar Hamlin, the most important thing, released from the hospital today, which I thought was really awesome. So
yes, definitely happy he's doing good.
Yeah, one of the scariest things to ever see in a football game by far. I mean, that sits with you. From what I read, I heard T. Higgins was really messed up about it, and he did not leave the hospital the whole time DeMar Hamlin was there.
Shit.
Because he was racked. I mean, even though it wasn't necessarily his fault, he was racked with guilt. I mean, imagine reliving that play over and over again.
Yeah, it's like
what you could do differently. And the thing is, I don't think and to be honest, I thought the hit was clean. I didn't think it was anything bad.
No, it didn't look bad. It was a clean hit. It was clean. Like it wasn't a hard hit. It wasn't it wasn't a cheap shot or anything like that. It was clean. And I get it though.
The funny thing is, Klim, nobody's saying it was a dirty hit either.
No, that's the thing. But I'm just glad he's doing good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so when's our next show?
I can go for next week.
You want to try for next week?
Yep.
All right, let's work on some guests, and we'll do that. I guess we'll do it for next Monday. All right, well, that'll do it for our episode of Moffett on the Mic for this week. A very special thank you to the one and only Boy Green, Paul Andrew Esden Jr. of Heavy.com, he writes for the Jets. You definitely check out his stuff. Klim, we have a new member of the Moffett on the Mic family after today.
Yes, we do. And he said he wants to come back on. He likes us.
So that's huge. But we really appreciate him coming on the show to talk some Jets football. I'm a huge fan of his work, so please, if you get a chance, check out his stuff on Facebook. It's awesome. And one thing about Paul that's very cool, if you have a comment about his article, if you want to debate, he will debate, and he does get back to you. He writes back. So definitely want to take advantage of that. But he was really awesome as usual. And I couldn't be more happy that he came on the show today. And I was really appreciative of him on short notice to come on our show. So again, thank you to the one and only Boy Green, Paul Andrew Esden Jr. for coming on our show today to talk some Jets football. We're looking forward to having you on again in the future. Mm-hmm. On behalf of Klim, this is Craig. This has been the Moffett on the Mic show. Wherever you are, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the playoff games. Enjoy everything. And we'll be back. Right now, it looks like next Monday. So if we can try to put some guests together, we're going to see if we can make that happen. So keep an eye out next Monday right here on the A1 Sports Network. Shoot for a 7:30 start time. Wherever you are, stay safe. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the games. And Klim, good luck with everything with the fire department stuff. And, keep you posted on how that works out. And that's pretty awesome for you. And so best of luck with everything. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Take care.